life was very primitive for my father and his brothers in the slab warri, but the meat was quite prevalent, quite readily available. There were that many wood pigeons in the bush that at times, if they wanted a pigeon for tea at night, they could be knocked down with a stick. Also, the safety measures used there was, if help was wanted, they would fire 3 shots in the air in quick succession, and the other bush felling contractors in the area would come to see if they could help. And it was very frowned on if somebody was out shooting and happened to shoot 3 shots in quick succession. My father, being brought up on agricultural area in Fordell, started growing oats, and he brought in a steam engine, a 25 horsepower Ruston Proctor stationary steam engine to power the chaff cutter. And what a massive job it must have been with the terrain as it is, and the roads in very poor order, to have got that in, because it weighed over 4 tons. And when we shifted it in later years, it would take 4 good draft horses to keep it moving. That was used for the chaff cutting and firewood, and later I can remember as a schoolboy when they were using it, when the shearing machines were first installed, they used it to drive the shearing machines. And one afternoon when my father had to go away, I had to come home from school and stoke the steam engine to keep it power up for the shearers. And being enthusiastic, I put too much miry in, and about a quarter of an hour later the safety valve on the top blew, and as the steam engine was enclosed, I had kittens and spent half an hour sitting halfway up the hill at the back of the waiting for the, and when the safety valve, when the pressure dropped, the safety valve stopped, I came back and went on with the job. It was a near tragedy in the family in the early days. It was before I was born. But the Kuatea stream, which meandered backwards and forwards in front of the house, when it was in high flood, one of our main pastimes was to make little wooden boats, throw them in higher up the stream into the current, and then have races down. It depended which part of the current you got them in. Further down, about 3 chain further down, the stream turned at more than right angles, and the boats would float down and come out to the bank at this spot. This morning, the 3 eldest, Jim, Arch and John, were engaging in this pastime, and Len, who was only 2 and dressed in petticoats, the dress of the time, came out the gate which had been left open, and next thing had tumbled into the stream. The 2 elder, Jim and Arch, sent John in to tell my mother, and they ran down the stream to where they knew Len, who was floating, supported by his petticoats, would come near the bank. And as he floated down, supported by the petticoats, Jim lay down on the bank, Arch held his feet so that he wouldn't fall in, and Len came floating down, and as he was floating past, Jim pulled him to safety. The hardships of the bush felling were very great, and my father's younger brother Norman, who was helping with the bush felling, cut his hip with the axe while felling bush, and they turned septic. He rode out to Kimbolton, had the abscess lanced by the doctor, and then rode on to Fielding and went home to Fordell by train. Unfortunately, he developed blood poisoning and died at quite a young age. The family would have been the first to have started top dressing on the hills in Rangi. That would have been approximately 1934, because I left there in 1937, and I had helped with the spreading of manure 3 or 4 years before I left. The bags, the super was in 1 3/4 hundredweight bags, and we used to put on approximately 25 ton. With the hill at the back of the house, it was necessary to sledge the manure to a depot on the top of the hill with the 4 horses, and it used to be my job with an upstanding horse and a sledge that would carry 2 bags to spread the manure out to the sowers. The sowers would put on round about a ton a day, and they used either a cut-off bag or a box and a saucer to spread it. They could put it on quicker if the hills were steep, because if they could walk along a track, they could probably cover a chain below them with the throw. The steeper the country, the more area, bigger area they could get over in a day.
Yep, go.
The names I can recall who used to spread the manure were Jack Carey, Sid Hancock, Bernard Zabel, and it would be either one of my brothers, Len or John, because the other brother would possibly be sledging manure from the shed to the top of the hill to keep the supply up. 4 horses were used in a bigger sledge for that job. Our neighbours were very good in the area, and our nearest neighbour on the north side was Alec Morgan. He was a man with very long feet, and the joke in the district was that whenever they wanted to break a riding horse into harness and shafts, they would give it